Thank the baseball gods. We have a week off from watching the Seattle Mariners because boy was it ugly watching them lose 3 out of 4 to the Los Angeles Angels of Disneyland. Joe and I are going to break down that series. What went wrong for the Mariners? We're then going to talk about the MLB draft and a couple of the players that went to the Mariners in this draft on day one. We're then going to talk about the home run derby. Joe and I are going to make some picks as to who we think is going to win this thing. And the winner, whoever's right, gets a high five.
From
And
who?
then we'll
I didn't mean to interrupt the intro. I'm sorry, but like, who's getting the like?
the intro is sacred.
I'm sorry.
And then we're going to talk about the possibility of Jazz Chisholm with the Mariners. This is your fault. The Mariners are favorites for Jazz Chisholm in a trade from the Marlins, according to Boob Nightingale. We're going to talk about that, Joe. Hi. Wait, no. Welcome to, this is all your fault. Welcome to episode 104 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav network, the Jenny Baseball episode of the podcast. And I'm here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I almost sabotaged Jenny's episode. That's crazy. I as the umps do, they turn into the ump show. Turn this into the Joe show, Jenny. Sorry, my bad. I got fixated on who would be giving the high five that the winner of the home run derby, whatever predicting thing. I got fixated. Okay, I got a little lost in the sauce. That's on me. On me, guys. Hopefully you can forgive me. I need some sort of emotional support after this Angel series because it was bad. Bad top to bottom. Like, how do you put up 3 stinky efforts in a row heading into the All-Star break? It's not fathomable how poorly this baseball team played against the Los Angeles Angels. My dad texted me after the game, said, "What the F are the Mariners doing? The angles, not the Angels, the angles." My dad hates isosceles triangles. The Angles are a bad baseball team. They suck, he said. Everyone and their mother knew that the Angels were going to be a bad baseball team heading into this year. And if you made any sort of predictions about their win-loss columns, whatever, if you did any sort of betting on them, over-unders, you might have done it with BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, and even all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing, every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played, BetOnline has you covered. And when the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of the over 150 slots games to play. Head to the website today to get in on the action and use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here. I think game 1, Colton, really set up us to just be led astray, if I'm being completely honest here. An 11-0 shutout. The Mariners put together 15 hits after a pretty successful offensive series against the Padres, one game more than the other. You're heading into Anaheim against a bad baseball team. You got Castillo on the mound facing Kahanowitz as making his MLB debut. Definitely didn't have it. You put together 15 hits. You score 11 runs. It was a good game from the Seattle Mariners. Castillo, 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 5 Ks. Didn't even have his best stuff. But he gets it done because the Angels, they're not good.
Are a bad baseball team. Were
there
you
you go.
for me
Yeah.
to say that?
No,
okay.
I wasn't, but like it works out.
Okay.
Huge games. JP, Cal, Julio. I mean, Ty had a good game. Polanco had a good game. Like, there was offense up and down this lineup in game 1. And I wish they would have spread it out a little bit. As I feel like, I don't want to say like they typically do, but we've seen this happen more than once. The offense explodes and then goes dormant the rest of the series.
The start to this series was a good look at what we saw in San Diego with the Mariners offense, specifically with guys like Julio and Cal. Victor Robles had a decent series as well, kind of solidifying himself as maybe, as of right now anyway, a starter in the outfield for the Mariners going forward until they make a trade. Going into game 2, however, George Kirby on the mound versus All-Star Tyler Anderson. This was a game that I think we were both worried about. But the Mariners handled Anderson all right, all things considered. Another decent game there for Julio. I believe JP had a good game as well, correct?
You threw me off because you said Kirby. Kirby didn't start this
game.
game.
It was Woo. You're right. It was Brian Woo.
It was
That's
Woo's
right. It got
not great start.
And he was bad.
Yeah, he was bad. Tyler Anderson, I mean, he wasn't great. 6 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned. You're looking at JP went 1 for 5, Garver went 2 for 5, Cal 2 for 4, Julio 3 for 5. I think a lot of the guys on your team that you kind of need to go big did. It's just Wu didn't have his best stuff. 3 1/3, 9 hits, 4 earned, only struck out 1. This game though does boil down to the fact that the Mariners had how many left? Oh no, that's the third game though. They left a bunch on with Rayleigh grounding. Yeah, just not having it. This game is the Willie Calhoun game. Blame Colby Patno tweeted before the game, Willie Calhoun's going to be a problem. Hit a walk-off home run off of Austin Voth on the second pitch. An awful, honestly, a terrible pitch. An absolutely horrendous pitch to throw. It is what it is. Like, he beat you in this game. Had a home run earlier in this game as well. Cal homered from both sides of the plate in that first game. Homered again here off of Tyler Anderson. Team leading 20th home run. Like, Cal was on scorched earth to start this series. Mariners scored 5 runs on 10 hits. The Angels just beat them by 1. 6-5 loss here. It was, you get to Tyler Anderson and you can't really do anything else. Like, Ben Joyce comes in pumping, I think, through the hardest pitch in all of baseball this year to Josh Rojas. He fouled it off. Aside from that, like, you just didn't do anything late in this game.
This is a game where the Mariners had their chances, but when it all comes down to it, if you're going to lose a game, this is the one I expected you to lose. Turns out they lost all 3 after the first win against the Angels. And the good news was, Joe, is I was at like a street fair in Everett during this game. And there was a beer garden.
That's good.
And so I didn't really care. So game 3, that game was depressing.
Yes.
The Mariners lose a 2-1 game. Luke Rayleigh poops the bed twice with the bases loaded. And people will complain a little bit about not being able to get to, I think it was Ben Joyce, where there was a double from Robles and then 3 straight strikeouts. The problem in this game was not coming through with the bases loaded multiple times. Not that inning against some of the best stuff you'll see all year.
Oh, that was to me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were stopping talking. Yes, like Kirby pitched great. It was a situation where like the defense does this stupid little flub, like, oh, let me throw the ball in. Short hops JP, ball rolls past him. Rojas is trying to go chase the ball down, runs into the run. Like, it was just awful. And that's how the game is lost, because you gave up 2 runs there. You only scored 1 in the first. That's all you can do. Like, it looked great to start this game. The offense in the first inning strung together a couple of hits, had another chance, didn't score. And then that would be, I think, the thing that a lot of people will remember about that is like the squandered opportunities you had later in this game when you get a bunch of guys on. The Robles train is definitely full bore ahead. Like, that dude needs to be your everyday, one of your corner outfield spots coming out of the break. Like, full stop. He is playing hard baseball. I feel like a full 9 innings every time he gets an opportunity. He has earned his way into the starting lineup, I think, coming out of the break. Rayleigh, he's definitely scuffling a little bit here. Hopefully a nice little reset for him. But you needed him to come through to win this game, because no one else was really, I don't want to say no one else, but the opportunities were there for certain guys and it just didn't happen. Which is, it sucks, because this is a game that you're like, okay, like Kirby's pitching great, like coming off of the Brian Wu start, you're like, okay, we're in an okay spot here. And it just, nothing ever amounts to really anything past that first inning.
And we got to give the Angels some credit. They have a good bullpen. Like, their bullpen is each guy that comes out of there is pumping like 100. It's wild to look at. But once you get through like Ben Joyce, I think it was like the 8th inning, and Contreras, I think, was on the mound. Like, that's an inning you want to take advantage of, because you know that you have Carlos Estevez at the back end of that bullpen. You're probably not going to get anything off of him. In the end, again, Kirby was good in this game, but the offense just did not do enough. Going on to game 4 here, the last game of the first half, the Mariners put together a couple of runs in the 6th and in the 7th inning, led it 2-0 until the 8th inning, when a 3-run home run from Joe Adell kind of derailed everything that the Mariners and Logan Gilbert had done. That move by Scott Service, I think we can all agree, was probably the worst managerial decision we've seen all year. To take, well, I don't know, on the mound, to take out Logan when you have a break coming up all of that.
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense to take out Logan Gilbert in that situation when he is absolutely cruising with the 7, 8, and 9 hitters coming up to the plate.
I
It makes
think,
no sense.
like, in practice, this is what they've done the entire year, it feels like, right? It's not about, like, Divish had, I don't want to say a great post about it after the game, but like a post that makes sense. Like in practice, them, it doesn't matter if he's at 87 pitches like Gilbert was. It doesn't matter if he's only at 7 innings. It's like there's a lot more that goes into it for this Mariners team as far as like their analytics department is concerned with making those decisions. Am I condoning the decision? No, they should have let Gilbert at least go out there. If he walks the first batter, fine, yank him, go to someone else. Maybe then that gives you enough time for Stanek to be like, yo, my back, it's not good right now. Because whatever happened in that situation, if it happened to him live on the mound in that first batter, there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Right.
He was fine in his pen, walked out, threw a pitch, tweaked my back. Nothing you can do about it at that point. You have to just hope that the next guys up can get it done. Unfortunately, Austin Voth does not for the second time in this series. A rough stretch for Voth in this Angel series. Had been doing really well. And many
He's been
outings.
nailed. Yeah.
And many outings leading up to this series has been good. Should they have used him 3 days in a row? Should they have used Santos? Santos apparently was not available. Do you go to Thornton instead? Sauce was ready. There's so many like ifs, ands, or buts. Who knows if bringing in Sauce saves you in that situation, because he gave up the grand slam to Joe Adell back in Seattle. You never know. And why they went to Voth? It's a bunch of righties. Of course they're going to play the righty matchup. The problem is you threw a slider middle to Joe Adell, who, yeah, he's definitely not lived up to his hype his entire career, but he's got pop. He's always had pop. You lose this game because you let Carson Fulmer go 4 2/3, striking out 7. Don't scratch a hit off of him. You had the bases loaded with no hits at one point during this game. Didn't score anything. JP hit a home run. Victor Robles manufactured a run, stealing a couple bags. Aside from that, and Logan Gilbert, your team did nothing today. And did they deserve to lose? Yes. They 100% like lost this game. The Angels, did they win this game? The Mariners lost all 3 of these games without a doubt.
And each game was close. Obviously, I think all 3 were lost by 1 run. Correct.
You outscored them in the series because you dropped 11 in the first game. But like, does that matter? No.
And the point that I think that I've seen the most with Logan Gilbert recently is like, oh, like they're saving him for October. He's throwing the most innings in baseball, blah, blah, blah. Like they're saving him for October. At this point, like it's hard to see, like there's a possibility they don't make it to October.
Yeah.
So you might be wanting to try to win the games now instead of worrying about October. Maybe try to win the baseball games that are in front of you. Maybe just a thought. And it's not like all of Logan's innings have been stress innings. He goes out there and sometimes he just is this smooth and like, yep, cool, yep. Get the ball, fire, cool, you're done. Like the stress innings are a lot different than regular innings. And so I don't know. Going to Voth a 3rd day in a row makes no sense. You could have gone to literally anybody else. Like literally anybody else, and it would have made more sense than going to Austin Voth for a 3rd straight day. I don't get it. After he already blew the game.
Yeah, like it was a series where he didn't have it. And you can never, like, a pitcher is not gonna be like, don't give me the ball. Like he's called to action. He has to go out and make those plays. Throw the pitches, make guys swing and miss. Just didn't happen. Walked the next batter as soon as Stanek came out, and then of course the home run comes up there. It's a weird final game that you wish they would have won, because, well, you'd be sitting a lot prettier with vibes as far as that's concerned heading into the break. But as you said at the top, we need a break from this godforsaken baseball team right now.
Hang the banner, though.
Hang the banner. We're in first place.
Suck it, Astros.
All right, relax.
Heck the Astros, Joe. Anyway, it's the All-Star break now, ladies and gents. We all need it. Take some time, relax. Maybe just go a day and just try to think about the Mariners. Today's not that day, though, because we do need to talk about the MLB Draft, where in the first round at pick 15, Mariners took switch-handed pitcher Durangelo Sanger from Mississippi. And this is a guy who we've all looked at in terms of comps to, not comps, but like he has been mocked to the Mariners multiple times prior to this.
Yeah.
There were guys there specifically Trey Savage, who
Mm-hmm.
I think was someone that we all figured if he was there, the Mariners would take him. They do decide to go with St. John instead. And Joe, how do you feel about that pick?
I'm not mad at it, right? Like I was live during it. It was an interesting situation because we were all waiting for like Trey Savage to pop up, and then you know chats come in. Oh, they're picking Sanger. They went with the switch pitcher. It's like okay, cool. Do a little bit more looking into him. Like as far as release point stuff is concerned, he's a little bit more of a lower slot, so maybe the Mariners like that a bit more about him compared to like Savage's like over the top delivery. It's definitely a like lower value pick as far as like money owed to him is concerned. He was ranked 25th on MLB Pipeline. I think Joe Doyle had him 20th, but obviously the Mariners pick him at 15. More upside as a righty, but says he still wants to pitch as a lefty. Like he still wants to do the switch pitching. I think if there's a team, there's a handful of teams that I think can utilize his abilities, his very unique skill set to the best of bring it the like the best out of him. The Mariners are like top 5 in that department, I think. Given their track record with the last couple of drafts in the first round, I think your biggest miss is Emerson Hancock as far as like what you thought they might develop into, at least so far. Because you haven't seen Harry Ford in the bigs, same thing with Young and anybody from the 2023 class as far as Emerson, Pete, and Farmello are concerned. Hancock, he's like a guy that, yeah, he just didn't pan out fully, but he's still been serviceable. I think you have to kind of trust the Mariners draft process here. And like, sure, Homer, yeah, duh, they've hit on like 6 of the last like 7 picks. Of course I'm going to trust them. They're nailing it. If they see something in this guy that some other teams didn't or other prospect evaluators don't, I'm in. They can probably bring the best out of his like lefty, like loopy slider and make him absolutely unhittable in certain situations. And I have to imagine that's probably where it goes to. Like I don't think he's going to pitch left-handed to every single left-handed batter. It'll probably be certain guys that like, okay, they've got a big swing and miss on this certain pitch type. You throw that pitch perfectly, go get him. Kind of a situation. I don't know how it'll work as far as like what they utilize him as a starter, because obviously he was starting games in Mississippi State. Do they utilize him as a reliever? Like this is unprecedented. This is uncharted territory. We have no idea really how this is going to go because Pat Venditti was never on this level as far as like talent. Sure, he is a switch pitcher. Very cool. This is something completely new. And if you're not satisfied with the pick as far as talent or like what like the value is there, the allure of Jurrangelo St. I think for me is enough to be like, okay, I'm willing to buy into this for a little bit, right? And just see how it goes.
I think Senja has a pretty high floor because realistically, you have options with him.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a 98-mile-an-hour right-handed flamethrower out of the pen if you need him to be. You could also have if that doesn't work out, you have a guy who can throw lefty low 90s, with a pretty devastating sweeper, I'd say, when he can locate it from the left side lower arm slot. I think that he is a guy that if things don't go right in his development from the right side, they can just say, okay, well, let's try this then. And like you said, he wants to keep switch pitching, and the Mariners are cool with that. They say, okay, like until basically you tell us you can't, or until the numbers say you can't, then let's give it a shot. Why not? And I think that's the right move for the Mariners to make. I think that he's a guy that he's on the mound. Let's just say the year is 2026 or 2027. He's on the mound versus Shohei Ohtani and decides that he wants to go lefty against him.
Sure.
Maybe like just to throw a left-handed hitter out there. Maybe Ohtani struggles with a left-handed sweeper, and you can see that in the pitch data and say, hey, you're throwing lefty on this one. Like you can get crafty with somebody like Jurrangelo. And I think that that's a move the Mariners making. That move is something that, while I think that Savage has a higher ceiling, I think that Jurrangelo St. has a higher floor, if that makes sense.
It's a safer first round pick compared to some of the other ones maybe that they've made because one, they go college arm. You're saying 2027, this guy could be up in the bigs at the end of next year because, that's just how college arms work. They're typically, you're going to fast track them a little bit more. And a guy that you're picking in the first round, like likely he could fly through some of the lower affiliate ranks. And if it's not 2025, 2026 could definitely be on the radar for Senja, without a doubt.
I don't think that he is the type of like top of the rotation arm that Savage could be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Savage, like I said, has that higher of a ceiling, but Senja could definitely fit into like a middle of the rotation slot. And like I said, worst case scenario, you can use him as either a high leverage fireballer
Mm-hmm.
or as a crafty lefty out of the pen. You have multiple choices. That brings us to pick number 2 for the Seattle Mariners at 55, where they went with a high school arm, Joe, which they do not do very often.
I know.
They went with a high school arm. Tell me about him.
So Ryan Sloan, apparently available
Overslot.
overslot pick at number 55 in the second round. Ryan Sloan, he was the 19th ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline on the top 250 draft prospects, higher than Senja in the first round there. If there was something that was pushing teams away from Sloan, that's something that we definitely could be looking out for. But scouting grades, 60 fastball, 55 slider, 60 change, a 50 for control, overall 55. He was like Gatorade's Illinois High School Player of the Year. Can throw 93 to 96, can top out at 99. Sloan has the ability to be a top end level prospect in this Mariners system tomorrow. Tonight, since he's drafted. He is committed to Wake Forest. The Mariners have not had any trouble recently, I think, with getting guys to sign. But it's a situation where you're going with a high school arm. He's 6'5", 220. The Mariners needed to reload on their pitching depth as far as prospect talent is concerned. Unfortunate situation with, like, you traded for a guy like Cole Phillips, who is in your top 30, second Tommy John. We may never see him. I feel like if he doesn't get Tommy John, you probably don't go Ryan Sloan here at 55, an overslot pick like this. I think this is almost not out of like necessity, not like crazy like that, like how we maybe talked about if they trade Harry Ford, they go with a catcher kind of a situation. But I'm not mad at this pick. I think you're getting a guy that was projected in maybe not projected, but listed as a top 20. Getting him at 55, if he amounts to anything of what led him to be that highly rated of a prospect as far as like draft prospects are concerned, you just got to steal at 55.
He's 18 years old and he's already pretty built out, like you said, at 6'5", 220. The idea with going, I'd say slightly underslot probably with Senja,
Yeah,
and then going overslot with Ryan Sloan. A lot of teams will end up doing this, but the only reason I could think of that he would fall this far is because teams didn't think that he would sign. That's the only reason I could see him falling this far. And maybe because the Mariners were able to give a little bit less money to their first pick, they are able to give more money to their second pick. It's kind of how the draft looks like it's going to work out here.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the Mariners going with some pitchers here. First of all, we got to give credit to this Mariners development system. If you can get these guys in your system, working one-on-one with them, I have every bit of faith in Scott Hunter and the rest of the team that they're going to turn these guys into big leaguers. Because that's just what they do, especially with pitching. We've seen it with Kirby, with Gilbert, with Wu, with Miller. Like, they've done this. This is something that I don't know if they've ever done it with a high school arm.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy that I think that you can dream on a little bit in probably 2-3 years, probably maybe 3-4 years, that could be in your rotation. It's still tough to say. I don't want to say that he has the opportunity to be a frontline starter. I think that's a little bit of a stretch to say for a high schooler, a prep arm. But with that stuff, he has a chance that if his floor is probably like a late inning reliever.
Yeah.
Like a guy who can come in at the end of a game and lock things down. But I think his ceiling probably is that of an ace, whereas Gerangelo Senja's is that of like a mid-rotation guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sloan's is that of an ace.
It's definitely like we haven't seen them develop a high school prep arm yet. It's slow goings with Walter Ford. So maybe this is like almost like a part 2, kind of testing the waters again.
Kind of looks like him a little bit, actually.
Yeah, right? A little bit. Just a little bit less, I think, lettuce on top. Not as much hair, but I don't know. Regardless, exciting. Draft day is always fun. I think unfortunate day on Sunday, Mariners lose, but you get, I think, 2 solid picks in the draft to kind of like, I don't say polish a turd of a day, but feeling better. Just because it's new horizons for the Mariners in general.
I'm glad the draft was right after the game.
Yeah, just completely flushed the game.
Oh, that sucked. All right, let's look to the future now.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, where would you rank these two guys in your Mariners top 30? Because we will be doing probably after the trade deadline, we'll be doing a re-rank of the Mariners' top 30 prospects. Where are you leaning towards putting these guys right now?
It's so hard because with Sloan getting picked, it
Right.
completely changes my view of like where I was going to
Mhm.
rank Senja. Because last year, Colt Emerson was ranked fourth out of the draft in the Mariners system. And then Farmelo and Pete were 10 and 11, I think, out of the draft.
3 first rounders. Yep.
Yeah. So Senja, a first rounder, to me leads to a top 10, if not around the 10th. But this draft class isn't nearly as strong in, say, after the first like 3 or 4 picks compared to last year. I'm gonna rank Senja. Oh, man. I'm giving him the top pitching prospect in the Mariners system. I'm going Senja at 11, right in front of Michael Morales. I don't know if I'm going to put him in the top 10. I don't know if I can go that high. I'll just say 11. And Sloan, I'm putting him at 15. I think, give everything considered, how they've ranked prospects, that's a flipping of where they were ranked in the draft process. For whatever reason, I'm switching it right now. Senja 11, Sloan 15. Colton, I don't think you agree with me.
Mm-mm.
Where are they going?
In fact, I'm going to get a little weird here. An accent's going to flame me in the comments.
Fantastic.
I'm going to put Jurrangelo Cijntje at 13.
Okay.
Ahead of Teddy McGraw. I think that when we do our re-rank, I think I'll have him above Michael Morales.
Sure.
But just where I'm putting him at right now, 13. And Joe, I'm putting Ryan Sloan at 10. I think with his high ceiling, he's a guy that should probably rank a little bit higher on the prospect list, putting him as the number 1 pitching prospect for the Mariners right now. Further away, obviously, but again, I think his high ceiling puts him ahead of Senja in terms of where I rank him as a prospect currently.
Sure.
Now, keep in mind, this is very fresh, and I'm not going to act like I'm an expert and know everything there is to know about these guys. But right now, I'm putting Ryan Sloan at 10 and Senja at 13. Pushing Teddy McGraw back. I think Jonathan Clase falls out of the top 10 here as well. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
I mean, Senja will be the 10th one as soon as Clase graduates. So that's my copium there.
Okay. Well, I mean, half the top 10 is going to get traded in my trade deadline video anyway. So
perfect.
Joe, who do you have in the home run derby?
Right now, anybody but Marcell Ozuna from the Braves. It's hard not to go Teo. I think Teo would be a fun one to do. Realistically, guys I think don't make it out of the first round. I think Bohm's eliminated. I feel like Jose Ramirez is going to get eliminated. I feel like, Adalis is having such a down year compared to last year, but it's the Derby, man. He can just start in Texas. I feel like he's got to make it out of the first round. I think Bohm, Ramirez, Gunnar, not making it out of the first round, and we'll say Marcell Ozuna. My final 4 will be Pete, Garcia, Teo, and Bobby Witt.
I also want it to be Teo just because I love Teo as a person. It's going to be Bobby Witt Jr. He's going to continue solidifying his place as one of the faces of baseball, one of the best players in all of baseball. I think that he's going to shine on the biggest stage. But that's just kind of where I'm at. Joe, we do have one more topic to talk about. And that is that Jazz Chisholm and the Mariners have once again been linked with Bob Nightingale, Boob himself, saying the Mariners are emerging as favorites for Jazz Chisholm. I've said it a million times, Joe, that Jazz Chisholm is the most overrated player in all of baseball. How do you feel about this report?
I'm not mad at it. The thing is if you're trading for Jazz Chisholm, he's going to cost a decent amount because he's not a free agent until 2027. So you will have him on your roster for a bit. It's a situation where you're trading for a guy with some club control, a guy who has seen some high highs back in 2022, albeit in 60 games, put up a 136 WRC plus, a 254, 325, 535 slash line, a decently high strikeout percentage at 27.4, but he popped 14 home runs and drove in 45 RBI in 60 games. That's pretty solid production out of a guy that is the most overrated player in all of baseball. And the problem that you run into is that Jazz has never played more than 124 games in a regular season. He's currently sitting at 92. It's been his best year, knock on wood, as far as health is concerned. He's playing center field now, but the Marlins, They played him at second base as a little audition for teams like the Mariners or even the Yankees have been also rumored in this Jazz sweepstakes, if you want to call it that. But on the year, only a 103 WRC plus, very league average bat, solid defender out in the outfield. If he's playing second base for you, solid defender there as well, I'd say. My concerns are personality, just at the forefront of it. This is a guy that you're bringing in that is known to be boisterous, and
He has an
that's
ego.
sure has an ego, and that's okay. Players are allowed to do that. That's just the nature of the game. Players are going to have that in or around the league. It's how that is received or how he maybe jumps into the situation, because it can go south quick if things aren't going well, right? I think that if you're acquiring Jazz, it's going to cost a decent amount, but not anything crazy. But also, it shouldn't be your big move. This should not be the Mariners' big bat that they go get. And I'd even say that if he was sitting closer to that big year in 2022, as far as like production's concerned, because you've seen the highs and lows, you've seen the inconsistencies. Strikeout percentage is down ish. It's 25.3 on the year so far. So for his career norm, it's doing a little bit better. But I mean, I think you said what? You didn't want to give up anything higher than Michael Arroyo.
That's what Accent said, and I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably where I'm at too. But like, what package would you build out if you're acquiring Jazz? And do you try and maybe go get a reliever from them too? Like, is this a situation where you're double dipping in Miami? Two big fish, as I called it in a video before, like two big Marlins. Are you going out and getting Jazz and Tanner Scott, Colton?
I mean, if you're able to do that, I think absolutely. That's where a package like this I think makes a little bit more sense. And like you said, if Jazz Chisholm is your second or third best bat you add at the deadline, I'm completely fine with that. I am so okay with that. You can put him at second base, you can put him in the corner outfield if you need to, move him around. You're not stuck putting him in one position or the other. I do worry about the ego. I worry about the personality, but maybe he'd be a fun fit. Maybe we'd learn to love him.
Yeah.
But if you're going out there and getting both him and Tanner Scott, I feel like you probably have to go a little bit higher than Michael Morales and to avoid adding quantity over quality.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, it really depends on where the Marlins feel like they are in terms of competing eventually in the NL East. Because on one hand, I'd be okay. Like if you're getting both of them in terms of Scott and in terms of Jazz Chisholm, it shouldn't be too much more because Scott is a free agent at the end of the year. If we're starting with Michael Morales here, if that's kind of where we're starting to build our package, I think that honestly, I might be willing to even go Michael Arroyo, which I don't love.
Didn't
But
you
kind of
just say that?
I said Michael Morales.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Wait, is Michael Morales the highest you guys would go? Is that what you were saying? I thought it was Arroyo.
I think you're right. I think it was Arroyo. I got mixed up.
That's okay. Yeah,
That's
I feel
my
like
bad.
I mean you could do Arroyo and trade them both Michaels,
which I think is fine, especially after adding two guys just now in the draft, two starting pitchers. I think Morales does make sense.
Yeah.
To go to Miami in this deal. Morales is 21 at AA right now. But if you were to send like Arroyo and Michael Morales, I'm probably not adding a whole lot more to that, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously it's going to take more than that.
Sure.
Like maybe you throw like Brock Rodden in there or something, just as another guy. But just because he just got added to the top 30, you can say they got another top 30 prospect out of it.
Yeah.
I'm looking through like the Mariners like top 30 right now, and I just don't really see anybody else that I'm really willing to add to this. I mean, maybe it really does depend on where the Marlins see themselves in contention over the next few years. Because if they see themselves as like being a few years away, you could probably get away with throwing in guys like Dylan Wilson or Walter Ford or stuff like that. Guys that are younger. You know what I mean? Jeter Martinez, even although I don't want to do that.
Stop it.
But yeah, I know. We love Jeter Martinez here. But yeah, I think that Arroyo and Morales are a pretty good start with this team. I think that they are maybe considered not necessarily bulk for the Mariners, like things that they have, but you have middle infielders and Cole Young, Colt Emerson, etc.
Yeah.
Although who knows where that's at if you were to make more trades at this deadline.
Mm-hmm.
But sending out Arroyo and Morales, then maybe throwing in like DeWall Joseph or something like that. I think And then maybe you throw in like Jonathan Clase just to throw another guy in there, like Emerson Hancock or something,
Mhm.
just to get maybe someone a little bit closer to the big leagues that can fill in for them as well. That's kind of where my head's at. But even then, I feel like that's a little rich.
The Marlins prospect list is kind of void of middle infield talent in the top 10. So you've got Noble Meyer at their 1, pitcher. Thomas White, pitcher. Max Meyer, pitcher. Victor Mesa Jr., outfielder. Dylan Head, outfielder. Jacob Berry, corner infielder. Then a right-hand pitcher. Your first one is Yiddy Cappy. I don't know how to pronounce it.
That's a
Never.
sick name.
Yeah. Second base shortstop. He's in high A. Then you've got an outfielder and outfielder. Like in their top 15, you've got 2 middle infielders. I think a team that needs middle infield help, it's the Marlins. And what do the Mariners have a lot of surplus of in their system? Middle infield prospects. I don't want to say that Arroyo and Morales might be too shallow for Jazz and Tanner Scott when you're adding stuff on top of it. But I don't know if it's enough to like really like wow them as what you're getting, what like as far as like a ceiling is concerned with their prospects. I don't want to say I'd go as high as Valencelson,
Hell no.
but like if there's a prospect that could like wow them in that way, to then that's the big headliner, and then like you're just adding like like how you're saying like Brock Rodden, like random supplementary stuff like that. If it's one thing at the top that's further away, like you're saying how they might view themselves in a competitive way, that could be a guy. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I'm just entertaining the idea. That would, I think, navigate that trade much easier than you trying to convince them that Michael Arroyo is their answer at shortstop or second base in 2 years, versus you can have a guy that could potentially be the next Francisco Lindor. God forbid if we trade him and he becomes that, I will lose my mind.
I'm blaming you.
It's my fault entirely. You could have him a year and a half after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might go as high as Ty Pete. I mean, it's just one prospect higher on the list, but I think Pete has a much higher ceiling than Arroyo does as far as like skill set and talent is concerned. And does he kind of fit the Jazz Chisholm mold of an outfielder an infielder, middle infielder that's now he's playing left field in Modesto, who might not have a spot on this Mariners team going forward? I might go higher with Arroyo. I might go Ty Pete, but I don't think I'd go much beyond, like you're saying, with Arroyo and Morales is like guys that you could front end this with. But just in case, say like the Marlins like, we don't want them. Maybe not. You go like one or two spots higher. And I'm not going to be upset about it.
Mm-hmm. And, after you talk about their top 30, maybe Michael Morales doesn't make sense because they do have a lot of pitching. And honestly, the Marlins have always been pretty stacked with pitching.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at like Sandy Alcantara and whatnot, obviously coming back from TJ, but nonetheless, maybe they see themselves as contenders in 2 or 3 years. I don't know. Obviously they're they have a new GM, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
They got it. Yeah. And so who knows where they see themselves? We saw the Luis Arraez trade early in the season. Dylan Head was part of that trade. So obviously they're looking to add prospects. I think that's a good way to gauge where they see themselves. Where's Dylan Head at right now? Is he in AAA?
I mean, he's injured, I think, done for the rest of the year. But where he reported to...
Oh, that's right. They're not going to get Head the rest of the year.
No, yeah. He was down just in single A. So he's
okay.
projected 2027. He's 19. Yeah, so no Head for the rest of the year for the Marlins, unfortunately there. I
feel that.
Just bad timing as far as like acquiring a prospect. And they probably were standing on the sidewalk, smashed their phone, said, "So no Head," and then just like kept on with their day. So like it's just that whole Luis Arraez trade is just bad vibes all around. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the situation. I think it was Mariner Muse, like shortly after that injury happened. Not to say like that's a bad time to tweet something like that, but so like maybe we should trade with the Marlins because they've got historically bad luck with trades, kind of a vibe. Like whoever we trade to them just won't pan out, or I want to say gets injured because that's
kind of true actually in terms of the guys we've traded to them. I mean, think of like Nick Neidert. This guy who I was so high on, Nick Neidert, in like I think he was in the D Gordon trade, and I was like, oh my god, they gave up Nick Neidert, and like I think he had like probably less than a season in the big leagues. I don't even know if he's still around.
What year was that trade?
2017, I think.
Nick Neidert, 7th ranked in 2016 for the Seattle Mariners, the 3rd ranked prospect in 2017. Wow. Right behind Kyle Lewis and Tyler O'Neill, right above Mitch Haniger.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, they gave up Nick Neidert. And then can you look up his career, like
Uh,
his major league career for me really quick
yeah.
while you're on that?
I'm
Because
just
now I'm interested.
now you're invested. Nick Neidert. I mean, he's only
He's
27.
he's young. Yeah, young-ish.
Yeah, I mean, we're 27.
Whoa.
Um, a,
Listen, young man. All
a,
right.
a 4.54 ERA and 35 and 2/3 innings pitched in
Is he
2021
still
for the
with the
Marlins.
Marlins?
I Bleav it looks like he's on the Cubs right now,
Mm.
based around his picture. Let me see. Well, yeah, it looks like he's with the Cubs, but in their minor league system.
I can't believe I just pulled all that out.
Yeah, dude.
That was crazy.
Nick Neidert. Oh, he elected free agency in November of 2023.
Sign him.
Bring Nick Neidert home.
If you guys would have bet on a Nick Neidert mention in this podcast, you would have done it at Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for episode. We got way off track. Episode 104 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Sean Erickson episode of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.